Hi, everyone. You are watching The Self Connection with Ginny Brown and Kelly Pietro, where we have conversations with a group of ascended masters known as the multitude of the greater good.
Kelly asked the questions, and I channel the multitude of the greater good as they have a lot of information to share. So we never really know what the information is going to be or where it's going to go, but we start with a question and go from there. Thank you for listening, and I hope you find this video helpful.
Thanks for channeling, Jen, and thanks to the multitude for being here for us. And Ginny and I usually, are you getting something? Should I shut up?
No, just connecting.
Okay. We usually chit chat for a little bit before we start recording. We don't really talk about what we're going to talk about because I usually don't tell her, but this time we were talking and I said, I feel like we should talk about this. And so we often feel the multitude leads us down that path. So we're both very interested to see what they say today. So the topic, which I don't have questions formed yet, I trust they will come. Uh, the topic has to do with social media and the way it has been, well, I can't say a blanket statement for everyone, but what Ginny and I were talking about is, and I kind of brought it up, was like how much it's really dividing people, or what I've been witnessing is a lot of division. Some of my friends who were like the most loving people, um, are so angry at political climate that they are cutting friends off and making declarations and sweeping comments that seem very hate filled. And they were once like the most loving people I know. So it's so sad to watch that. Um, and I just felt like, well, what's coming to me right now is like each of these outlets. So, like Facebook, Instagram, uh, what is it, X, formerly known as Twitter. There's other Reddit chat boards or whatever.
Blue
Uh,
sky.
what is it?
Blue sky and
Oh, I
thread.
never even heard of that one.
Huh? It's out there.
What's that one?
I'm not on it. I just know that it's people, a lot of people who left Twitter moved on to Blue Sky or Threads.
I never even heard of Threads.
Yeah,
So
two other ones out there.
they all kind of seem to have their own like identity or their own energy around them. I don't know if you feel that, Ginny, but I see other content creators talking about like, if you want to post something about this, you use Instagram versus Facebook. Anyway, it feels like they have their own identity or their own purpose or their own energy. And I'm just wondering if um, that is true. And if so, what can the multitude tell us about the different identities and their purpose here for humanity?
Hmm. It is important to understand, my dear, that each one knows what each one needs and each one wants. And if it is that one is it's like necessitates sharing of what they know, what they want, and receiving that which they need, they will find a way to allow that to be. In our estimation, however, it is important to understand that each one allows each one's own self to move forward in each one's own way. Therefore, it's like, I don't know, what's that thing where each one finds its own weight, its own level?
Hmm.
It is important to understand that each one is able to allow oneself to be where one is comfortable in one's own being. Therefore, it's like birds of a feather flock together. Therefore, it is important to understand that each one will find an area of love and care. Therefore, in our estimation, each individual, it's like section of communication will allow itself to expand in the way it needs. and each one will find the right level of communication for each one. There are those, however, who are uninterested in any of that type of communication and choose to move forward in a way of their own. Some allow themselves to move forward in the way that you are, in allowing yourself to share your knowledge and information. And then there are those who are disinterested altogether. In our estimation, it does not matter what each it's like thread offers. What matters is that each one finds their own area of being and knowing, and finds oneself moving forward from that space of self. Do not be concerned.
Oh, it's a really good message to hear for me personally. Like, I definitely have a lot of judgments about, especially Facebook. I have a lot of judgment about like it's bad and gosh, it's so divisive. And that's what I in my thread, what I see is all this divisiveness and people changing, people becoming they're passionate about something, but they become very hateful. Like I'm watching that happen, and Ginny like pointed out to me earlier, like it's a loss. Like so for me, I wasn't acknowledging the feeling of loss that and how I like long for this world before social media because I feel like so much has been lost through the perception of connection. It's like really disconnection is what it feels like. Um,
It is important to understand, my dear, that there is a loss no matter how one chooses to communicate. It is only a means of communication. When one is able to say to oneself, oh, I feel this, or I see that, and I don't like it, one is able to acknowledge one's own feelings. And that is where the loss, it's like it resides, but that's how it comes to the surface and how it's like brought forward and then healed. We can tell you that there is much loss happening on the earth plane, and 90% of it has nothing to do with social media. In our estimation, it is a matter of understanding the loss is how one feels about oneself and others, and the situations that bring forth those feelings are those parts of self that allow not only oneself to be who one is, but to allow oneself to move forward in the space and time of knowing, of space and time of knowing all that there is to know for that person at that time. Do not be concerned.
yeah, so it's almost like these platforms are a vehicle by which healing happens in the way of feeling. Like, so in other words, like uh, Facebook is delivering the opportunity for me to feel loss. Has nothing to do with Facebook. It's just that's where it's happening for me. And
And
that feeling is I couldn't tell you. I guess the loss for me, if I want to intellectualize it, is going to be tied to a simpler time, a world before this intense division we're experiencing, on and on. Maybe there's a past life element of loss that is in resonance with what I'm feeling today. And, witnessing all this on Facebook is a way of bringing forth that resonance so that I can heal it in this lifetime. Is there anything they want to say about that?
it is important to understand that is the object. However, we can tell you when one comes to the earth plane, one already knows what is important for one to learn, for who one is to be, and for how one is to be. And when one is able to recognize that there is it's like I can't think of the word, but like the instigator to bring those feelings up, one is able to move through and heal those feelings. It is correct that there are many lifetimes of situations and many lifetimes of being in love. There are also many lifetimes of disintegration and many lifetimes of love, of loss and fear and of hurt. And when one is ready to heal those processes on the earth plane, one allows oneself to bring forth the opportunity to heal those processes. In our estimation, it is important to understand that each one knows who one is, each one knows what one wants and what one needs. And if it is that Facebook or any other means of social media brings it forward, it is important to understand it was in the process of coming forward. Regardless, do not be concerned, all is love.
Yeah, and one of the things I heard them say earlier is like to let each person have their process. So, like, one of the things I was talking to Ginny about was like, I'm watching this one friend and I felt the urge to reach out and be like, you know, you've changed. Like, don't let, like, you're so full of love and light. You're letting the division take you over. And I felt moved to like say something about it. But I was sitting with it like, well, do I say something? It's really none of my business. It's their journey. It's not my journey.
Right.
Why do I have a say in it? I really don't. And the multitude just kind of, you know, uh, validated that for me. Let them have their journey. If this is how they're having their journey through this platform with these people, who are interacting with and butting heads with, don't insert yourself. Like, it's their journey. Let them have their journey. So to just be the witness, it's hard to be the witness, right? And so it kind of leads you into one of our viewer questions, which is talks about like relationships, taking on other people's energy or their stuff. She was looking for advice for maintaining healthy relationships and navigating differing opinions, worldviews, and needs in a relationship. It's like this is just one more place to, we could talk about that about social media or just in real life too. Um, I'm not formulating a question, but do you have anything to say about that, Ginny? Do you have anything to say about that before I formulate a question?
Not really, no.
So, like, we can look at it from a physical, like three-dimensional standpoint, uh, and a mental standpoint of taking on someone's stuff. So in that case, I would have inserted myself.
Mhm.
I mean, not physically, but on the physical plane of like, hey, what are you doing? Right. And that's a way of taking on someone's stuff. It's not my business.
Right.
But people also can take on the energy of someone in the more etherical realms. Before we go down that road, can the multitude talk about the differences in those two?
Well, they've been wanting to say something, so I'm just gonna let them say.
Okay, yeah, I had a feeling.
It is important to understand that no matter how it is that one allows oneself to feel their feelings, it is important for one to feel their feelings, whether it be on the physical level or the etheric level where the healing takes place. We can tell you that there are many ways that healing takes place, many things that have been created over many lifetimes of being that are like ripe for one may use the word healing, but ripe for completing the process. At this moment of our being, we would prefer to use the completion of a process rather than the word healing, as it is not always applicable. In our estimation, however, when one is ready to complete a process of allowing, one brings forth the information that is required in order to allow that healing or that process to come to the forefront. And when one allows the process to come to the forefront, then one is able on the earth plane to see that there is a process, to see that there is something to be learned or completed, or in some sense of the way moving forward. In our estimation, however, when one chooses to say, oh, I don't want to feel that feeling, I don't want to know that, so therefore one blocks those things out, one is unable to allow the process to occur. Therefore, the situation arises and arises and arises, and therefore it gets pushed aside and is not necessarily taken care of. Therefore, when one allows oneself to feel one's feelings, allows oneself to complete one's process, and allows oneself to move forward, then the process is not only allowed, but it is incorporating a growth process along with it. Do not be concerned.
I always get tingles on my head when you channel. I feel like I'm always itching
Yeah,
on these episodes.
that's just energy.
I know. I swear I don't have my head never itches except for when we're recording. But anyway, okay, yeah. So I like that idea to see it as a process completing. And I mean, I call it healing, but they're saying maybe that's not the appropriate term.
Yeah, but I like the completion of a process much better than healing also.
Yeah, and I like how they pointed out that if it's ripe for completing, it will arise again and again and again until you choose, and in different ways, probably, right? So, like for example, perhaps I was what was ripe for completion for me is to feel loss because there's a process in feeling the loss that gets completed, right? And perhaps I was being shown this over and over again, whether it was through that, Facebook interaction, through another interaction elsewhere. It's hard to find those themes, right? But maybe in retrospect you can. But each one is an opportunity to feel that feeling and complete that process, should we choose it.
And I think a lot of times, because I live up here in the energetic, I think a lot of times that feeling comes from a past life experience that we are unaware of in this lifetime. And all we have is the feeling. And when you feel something and have no frame of reference for it in this lifetime, it's very difficult to recognize that, for one, it's a real feeling, and for two, that you can work through that process in healing or completing the process that had been begun. It's like, do not be concerned. So
Yeah.
half of that was them.
I love that. Yeah, and I think sometimes like we don't know we're in the middle of a process. Like when Ginny offered Kelly, what I'm seeing on your face is loss. And as soon as she said it, I just started crying. I couldn't even help it. And it was like, and I can feel it coming up again now, like, wow, I was not acknowledging loss. And it feels like there's probably more layers, right? That I didn't fully get to feel it until like saying the word is resonant with the feeling and I'm actually feeling it right now. And that's why the tears are coming up. But
That's part of the allowing. So
yeah.
if you can allow it to be, and accept that it's there, allow it to be like you are, and trust that that spiritual part of yourself is going to help take care of that too.
Yeah.
And you don't always have to go and relive a loss in order for it to heal itself. You just have to allow it and allow your spiritual self to work with it.
Yeah, like I'm not in this moment experiencing loss again, but I'm feeling the sadness that comes with loss, and I'm
Right.
allowing myself to feel it.
Yeah.
Um, so this it kind of makes me. I love how the multitude does this, Jenny. We we were talking about one topic offline. I was like, oh, maybe that's what we're going to talk about today, and not the list that I had thought. And now here we are getting to both things. So thank you, multitude, for taking care of everything at once.
What they said.
What did they say? I didn't hear it.
You're quite welcome.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
they know how to weave everything in. Um, wait, do I go to that? Okay, before I go to that, I guess I need to stay on this topic for a little bit longer. And it's the viewer question about taking on other people's energy. And we hear this a lot in the healing realm, in the metaphysical healing realm. You hear a lot of people saying like, "Oh, I can't be with that person because I'm taking on their energy and their negativity, and I'm taking it on," which actually is interesting language. Well, you're taking it. Doesn't belong to you. You don't need to take it. So it's actually good verbiage. Or people will say they're dumping it on me, right? So, but I understand this person's talking about really the discomfort they feel in the presence of someone. I often see it as like the lack of boundaries, the inability to put up boundaries, or whether that's physical, like, hey, I don't want to talk about this, or it's more like an internal process of like, they're saying this, it's making me feel this, and now I feel this. And I'm viewing it as I'm taking on their energy, right? But then there's like there's another that's probably more of a mental level, but then there's another level of etheric taking on people's energy that's happening in the background we don't even know about. Okay, so what's my question? What can the multitude share about this topic and advice and a better understanding for people who want to know and do better in this topic?
It is important to understand, my dear, that there are many people on the earth plane who are well aware of who they are. However, they cannot move forward in their own level of being. Therefore, they look to others to influence them in a way of searching for something better. However, we can tell you that 90% of the time of that searching for something better, um, uh, what is it? Results, that's the word, results in something detrimental. Therefore, when someone says, oh, I don't like what you just said, but it may make me more of who I am if I follow what you said. Then they are taking on another's opinion of themselves. They are taking on the inability to say, okay, that's what you believe. However, this is what I believe. They are unable to say, this is who I am, this is what I know, and this is what I want. And that is part of the goal of being on the earth plane, to learn who one is, to know what one wants, to allow oneself to stand up straight and tall in one's own shoes in order to move oneself forward. It is important to understand that on the emotional level, that is quite a difficult task. As on the earth plane, there are many who are interested in helping another, it's like move forward by relieving them of their own responsibility. Therefore, it is important to understand that when one believes they are responsible for another's feelings, one cannot move forward in their own feelings. Therefore, we would highly recommend that each one takes the opportunity to recognize their own feelings, their own wants, their own needs, and allow the other to have their own feelings, their own wants, and their own needs as each one comes to the earth plane to process those parts of self that are needing healing and reviving. And when it is that one chooses to take on another's feeling self as their own, neither one can move forward. Therefore, we would highly recommend that each one takes the opportunity to see themselves for who they are, to see their adequacies and inadequacies, and allow themselves to be in those states in order to make the changes that they are wishing to make. Do not be concerned, all is love. Well, that was interesting.
Yeah, that was really good.
Mhm.
Kind of just want to sit with it for a second. It was a lot. Um, yeah, and the process they describe, I feel like it happens under the radar and so quick, where
Yeah,
you can lose yourself in somebody else's words, response, reactions, decisions to go along with, and then feel in doing so, you leave yourself behind.
yeah. And I think a lot of it has to do with wanting to help another or take care of that other person, take care of their feelings, take care of what they want, help them out in a certain way. But it is about taking care of somebody else and disregarding yourself. And that's so common. Um,
Yeah. And that can look like going along with someone else for the sake of not ruffling feathers, because you anticipate if you do have a differing opinion, or if you do uh, disagree and speak it, or say, no, I don't want to do that, um, or no, what you're saying about me is not true. It's like there's like this knowing that if I speak up for myself, if I choose myself, that's going to ruffle feathers. And that reaction is something I'm unwilling to deal with.
yeah,
And then it's perceived as I'm taking on their energy, they're a negative person, but really it's like it's leaving yourself behind and not for the sake of keeping the peace.
yeah, yeah, because not being able to, not wanting to cause dissension to the relationship or to you know, I don't know, something about being responsible for that uneasiness in the relationship when really the uneasiness is within oneself and not allowing the other person to have their own uneasiness. But I know from experience that it's about wanting, for me, it was about taking care of the other, taking care of, to help them out however you can. And if you take on their feelings, they don't have to deal with it. But if you take on their feelings, it's a disservice to the other person. I can see that now. I couldn't see that then because I was a great taking care of her person.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like I've seen this a lot in my life as well, where remember as a new practitioner, I would be attached to outcome of a session. And if a client didn't feel better afterwards or see results, I took that on as, oh, I didn't do enough. And then it's like, you have hindsight, I can say, but I'm not in charge of their journey.
Right.
I can only help so much. The healing is actually them to do for themselves. I can just be part of that journey. So
Yeah.
I bring that up in case we're attracting other energy workers who think it's their job to have a certain outcome. If someone's paying them, they've got to see results, and it's like you kind of have to switch your mindset. But then also aside from that, like in real life, it comes up big time. Like a lot of, I think for a lot of people, it comes up as managing other people's feelings and emotions, and it happens quietly in the background, and you don't even know you're doing it. It's an innate internal process for a lot of people.
There's something I wanted to say and it keeps flying. It'll come back. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Same
Oh,
here.
you brought up a good point about you're not responsible for their healing. It's like we are responsible. We are all only responsible for our own healing. And that comes with, I think a lot of that comes with knowing who you are, what you want, what you need, and allowing the energy to flow. But we kind of think that we can heal another. And even if we lend our energy, say in bring through Reiki energy or higher realms healing energy, any of that energy, they're still doing their own healing. We are helping them in the best way that we can, and maybe help them raise their vibration a little, maybe help them connect with themselves a little, whatever it is that they need that's coming through that process, but they're the ones doing their own healing. We are not doing the healing.
Yeah, for sure. That's a big thing for people to hear, I think. I know I heard it so much, but it took a lot to click for me, you know. There's so much ego involved. You want results, you want to people to have a meaningful experience, and
And you want to do the best that you can do for that person too.
yeah. But it's very willful to expect that, because it's not in your hands as a practitioner, or even, and take this out of the practitioner mindset, as a mom, as a friend, as a partner, like, you can offer, just like with Reiki, you can offer, but
Mhm.
they need to step into, and that sometimes happens on the soul level, where the soul is like, no. How many times, someone in my family isn't feeling great, and I'll be like, oh, there's an herb for that, or hey, can I offer you energy work? And it's like, no. Okay, then their soul's not ready for it. That
Right,
says nothing about me.
exactly.
Says nothing about me. So it's like, taking the ego out of it for sure. Um, but yes, you said something really important, Ginny, and it's like, I think, like, I can speak from my experience, not having a strong sense of self can get in the way of allowing that truth to be, like, not knowing who you are, or having a strong sense of self. And for me, that came through connection with the divine, like
Yeah.
constantly turning it over to, it's not about me, you know?
It's also part of the learning process. It's part of help the growth process. It's part of why we came. So,
Yeah.
so yes, it's about a stronger sense of self, but sometimes you can only gain that stronger sense of self by moving through a lesser sense of self in order to get there.
Yeah, that's part of the growth process.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes me think about, though, because I know this theme comes up a lot in some of the interactions we have offline. And something I shared with you earlier, about my own personal experience. Um, it's like, let's let's talk about it in the means of conflict, right? So conflict being an umbrella where A and B don't agree, or have differing opinions, or whatever. Um, I can tell you that, like, my body takes over. Like, I don't have full control when conflict arises. There's this internal thing that happens, And I know I'm starting to learn a little bit more about myself to understand why that's there, where it comes from, so I can work to complete that process, right? Um, but when conflict arises, my body or my being goes into fight or flight mode. I don't
Yeah.
have the right words. I feel like, get me out of here. Um, it's so subtle though. Like it's so subtle that I didn't know it until yesterday. But I can, now that I understand that, I can look back at so many things of conflict and realize, oh, that's where I lose myself because I go into fight or flight mode, survival mode, and I can't help myself out in those situations. And I end up either like in a fight or I don't have the right words to explain my feelings or my stance or my opinions or my truth. And it just comes out as anger or I'm out of here. This relationship's no longer for me. Um, in
Or
there,
I was going to say, for me, lots of times is that I'm out of here, but I'm physically right there. I am just disconnected.
yeah, it's like a dissociation from what's happening right now. And so, by the time you get out of that acute situation, which I'm interpreting for myself as survival is now taking over, and I'm unable to feel whatever feelings are coming up because I'm in survival mode. And then afterwards, when things calm down, I start intellectualizing what happened. And it's like, well, this happened. And I start pointing the finger. And it's like, but this one did this. And so I'm in the right, right? Like I have a right to be upset because of this, and this. And um, the conflict never, uh, what's the word I want? Like
Resolves.
resolves. Yeah. Um, it's still happening internally. And then I get physical pains
Yeah.
because I didn't allow myself to feel whatever that feeling was, which I think for me is probably fear of abandonment. And I'm using myself as an example because I think that this is really deep and quiet and subtle, and we don't even know it. And it can happen for a lot of people who find themselves in people pleasing patterns, who for their lifetime have been trying to please others. And so when conflict arises, it's almost like I'm just like getting this now, but like it's almost like that sense of self is in conflict with somebody else's sense of self. And then because I'm a people pleaser, I can't resolve it. Because if I stand in my own shoes, I'm going to piss somebody off. And if I'm quiet, I'm just suppressing. Right. So, um, okay. So, and then I have this like psychosomatic pain afterwards. And so, Ginny, you gave me some good advice when we were talking about this earlier, which was I was like, well, now I'm stuck with this pain. And I don't know what the emotion was that I was supposed to feel that I ran away from. So, how am I supposed to feel the feeling? And you said, well, just connect to the pain feeling, not the emotional feeling. Connect with the pain feeling and breathe. And honestly, my back has been feeling better since we did that. Is there anything else that the multitude would like to share on this topic? We're talking about psychosomatic responses. We're talking about,
Again, of course.
okay, yeah, let them just go.
Before I let them just go, though, you brought up something, you said something that connected some dots. It's like people pleasing and taking care of.
Yeah.
They're two different things. They come
Yep.
out two different ways, but they're the same thing. Emotionally, um, it's like it's the same thing. It's like I'm not really pleasing, wanting to do something to please you. I want to do something to take care of you because I feel better doing it. So, but it comes out in the same thing in that they're not, it's about not allowing someone else to stand straight and tall in their own shoes. And I'm not talking about taking care of children or responsibilities. I'm talking about more the emotional level, which it's, I just put the two of them together just now.
Yeah, and I think sometimes that people pleasing it's wrapped up in our the identity we built for ourselves of wanting to be good and acceptable and loved, to be part of a tribe. It's like a very root chakra, tribal acceptance, which that's why I feel like for me that fight or flight is like the fear of abandonment. Like I'm going to be
Yeah.
shut out from the tribe. But
And the people pleasing at this moment is people pleasing comes from, and I don't know this is true, this is just what came to mind, is people pleasing comes from a subservient place of being, and taking care of comes from a whole different place of being. It's like, I want to help. I don't care about me. I care about you. But it's not really an ego level, at least from my experience. It's from, this is what I can do for you. And it also ends up probably in connection with people pleasing. I think they're both kind of the same thing. But it just hit me. People pleasing is from a subservient, a lesser than. Um, yeah,
yeah, I think oftentimes it's learned in childhood from a place of hypervigilance of your surroundings in order to survive. If I can make mommy or daddy happy and not set them off, right? So now I'm taking care of their feelings,
right,
then I will be good and things will be safe and I won't be in fight or flight.
right,
So it's like, yeah, and you see a lot of people who have that childhood experience in their adult life, that hypervigilance shows up in the nervous system as psychosomatic pain.
right.
It's a trained, the body becomes entrained into it.
And underneath that fight or flight is the fear, which you were talking.
Yeah, and not feeling safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, that was an interesting web we wove. So, what does a multitude want to share on that?
Okay, let's see. It is important to understand that you have come a very long way in your conversation. However, we would like to add that when it is that one is able to see these things, one is able to complete processes quite easily. It's a matter of moving forward and allowing one's experiences to guide oneself in a higher and better way. We would like each of you to understand that as it is that you move forward, that you help others move forward as well, as all is not as it seems on the earth plane. There is a great deal of connection and disconnection in spirit. And when one is able to heal those things for oneself on the physical level, the mental level, the being level, one is able to heal those selves on the spiritual level, and vice versa. When those things get healed on the spiritual level, they are also able to be healed on the physical level. And one can move forward through Earth's journey quite a bit more easily. Do not be concerned. Yeah,
Okay.
that's it. So,
I don't know if I got any validation in that, but I don't know that I need it.
yeah, it's just like just a statement. This is what happens. You heal it in one place or the other, but it
Yeah.
gets healed. And when you heal it, you help others heal it too.
Okay, so I guess us just showing up here, sharing our personal experiences is enough.
Well, yeah, it's enough. It's enough for those people who are watching to get whatever it is that they want or need out of it. But on the energetic level, the more we help heal ourselves, we help heal everyone on the energetic level, as everything in spirit is energy, which is a bit difficult for the mind to understand, but
Yeah.
as we help ourselves in our own energy, we help all that is in all the energy. So whatever work we do is beneficial to us and many others. So
Yeah, the visual I got as you were saying that is like, I don't know if this is right or wrong, but this is what I got. It's like when we die and return to spirit, I just see that as like this big cloud, and that everyone goes back to the cloud. Huh, it's kind of funny actually, because that term, the cloud, it's just right. Um, and so like, but while we're incarnated, it's like the cloud dips down, and here's Kelly doing her work and healing, and maybe there's this like wound or whatever. And then when I heal it and I go back, it's like I return that energy in like a good, healthy way. And so anyone who resonates with that can just like become more in resonant with the healed state. I don't know.
what I got when you said and you do your work and then you come down, and it's like that tornado.
Yeah, it's what life feels like sometimes.
Sometimes,
Debris flying everywhere.
just like a tornado. Wow,
Yeah.
caught
Wow.
up in the middle of it. So I think we've discussed all of that. The multitude of
Yeah.
quiet.
I think I want to continue the topic of psychosomatic response, hypervigilance, neuroplastic pain in another episode and lead us into another topic that I'm curious about if there's a connection. So we'll cover that in the next episode.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So thank you for all your questions, Kelly.
Thanks, Jenny, for channeling, and thanks to the multitude for providing us endless insights.
We are most pleased to be here. Thank you for asking.
All right, guys, we'll see everyone next time on the Self Connection.
Bye.
Bye.